Book 103 of 2019 was What Do You Say After You Say Hello by Eric Berne. So Eric Berne is a psychologist and he has a theory called transactional analysis. And essentially, transactional analysis is a triarchic theory about our ego state. And he suggests that we have a parent, an adult, and a child. I don't have three hands. That was ridiculous. And he suggests that people interact with each other, interface with each other in one of these three states. So, for example, if I was to speak to you from my parent state, you would respond in your child state because my parent causes the reaction you of a child. So if I talk down to you, as a parent would, then the child in you will get quite defensive. And that what we need to do is to try, and similarly, if someone was to talk to us that way, we would respond in a child way, and the goal is to interface as adults, so to keep our kind of emotions at bay and to interface as an adult. And that if someone is talking to you in a parent way or in a child way, that you respond as an adult, and then that puts them back in that state. Now, this book was not as good as Games People Play, which is Eric Berne's. I'm assuming it's his first kind of book on it because it details the theory a lot more than what this one does. This one kind of assumes that you've had that background with that other book. So this one, unfortunately, was quite repetitive and quite arduous to get through, whereas the other one's a very thin book. So this one is quite big. The Games People Play book is probably no bigger than that. So if you can kind of see the comparison, a condensed version would have been a lot better of this, I feel. So I was very disappointed by it because I thought that Games People Play was amazing, was really insightful, but yet that What Do You Say After You Say Hello, just not as good. Now, the titles of both of these books are very deceptive. Neither of them are about what you think they're about. You know, Games People Play is not about people who play games, which is what I initially thought it would be. It's essentially how we communicate in transactions. The Games People Play goes into it in a lot more detail and talks about things like you have different stroke conversations. So, for example, somebody that you don't know very well, you might say hello, they say hi, you say how are you, they say I'm well, how are you, yeah, I'm good, that's it. That's the conversation. So you add hello, how are you? So it's like a two-stroke relationship, or I'm not quite sure if that was a four-stroke. Games People Play I read quite a long time ago. So essentially, you shouldn't get offended when people don't interact more, because until they get to know you, they then increase the amount of strokes. And it's funny because after I read it, I started to analyse how I was interfacing with other people and realising what types of relationships I had with other people in response to kind of how many strokes we were giving each other. Obviously metaphorical strokes. And what was good about this one in comparison to the other one, because it did have its merits, was that it gave a lot of examples of people who were following scripts. So Berne kind of suggests that people have scripts and they get them usually from childhood. So for example, somebody might give you a script that you would make a really good hairdresser. I've just randomly picked that because I need my hair cut. So you follow that script and you live your life with that script. Or maybe you've got a script that you are always a nice person. Or maybe you've got a script that you are really clever. Whatever your script is, it could be anything. And you always kind of follow that out, but you don't really question it or wonder if that is true or not. And if anyone challenges you, that makes you feel very kind of insecure. And so I found those kind of examples of, I always find it very interesting that when an example is given of somebody else and their script explained and the reasons for it and things like that, it becomes very easy to understand why people are the way they are, and then you can kind of apply that to yourself. So I found myself, although it wasn't the same situation that I was reading about, I found myself being more able to look at my scripts and how I behave and what impact that's having on my life and how to change those. So it was very insightful for that reason. It also had an integration of fairy tales. So it talked a lot about, what was the fairy tale? I think it was the Little Red Riding Hood one. I can't quite remember now what it was talking about. Oh, it's not going to come to me in this. Read the book anyway, but it was very insightful that, because I'm very interested in fairy tales because of Jungian archetypes. So Carl Jung is another psychologist about kind of like depth psychology, unconscious psychology, and Jungian archetypes kind of explain why we sometimes behave in the way that we behave and how they're integrated within fairy tales. And it's almost like fairy tales are a way of us understanding ourselves and our own mind if we interpret them in the way that they were intended and not in the Disney version that's now been kind of repackaging it. So that integration was quite interesting. But then I did find myself questioning the scientific validity of everything that was being spoken about, because obviously it's all about unconscious mind, you can't really measure it and all that kind of things. But I did find it illuminating and interesting, because it did help me to, like I said before, improve my self-awareness and benefit me in that way. And so therefore it might do that for you. But what I would suggest is that try as games people play, but because I did prefer that one.